The late summer sun hung low over Broome County, New York, on August 23rd, 2017, casting long shadows across the rural landscape. Sarah, a single mother in her 30s, maneuvered her old sedan down a winding country road. Her two children, 6-year-old Emily and 9-year-old Jacob, chattering in the back seat. The air was thick with the scent of wildflowers and the faint hum of cicadas, a familiar backdrop to their daily routine. Sarah's life was one of quiet predictability. Work at the local diner, school runs, and evenings spent in their modest farmhouse nestled among rolling hills. But this evening, as the clock neared 6:30 p.m., something waited in the stillness, something that would shatter the ordinary forever. The farmhouse came into view, its weathered white siding glowing faintly in the fading light. Sarah pulled into the gravel driveway, the tires crunching softly, and cut the engine. The children spilled out, their laughter echoing as they raced toward the front porch. Sarah followed, her arms laden with grocery bags, her mind already drifting to dinner plans. She unlocked the door, and the kids bounded inside, their footsteps thumping against the hardwood floor. But as Sarah stepped over the threshold, a strange sensation prickled the back of her neck, a feeling of being watched, though the yard behind her was empty. The house was unusually quiet. No bird song drifted through the open windows. No breeze rustled the curtains. The silence felt heavy, oppressive, like a blanket smothering the usual sounds of the countryside. Sarah set the groceries on the kitchen counter, frowning. "Kids, keep it down for a bit, okay?" she called, expecting their usual protests. But there was no reply. The absence of their voices sent a chill through her, sharp and sudden. She moved toward the living room, her sneakers squeaking faintly on the floor. "Emily? Jacob?" Her voice wavered, betraying the unease creeping into her chest. The living room was empty, the couch cushions undisturbed, the TV off. A toy truck lay abandoned on the rug, its wheels still, as if dropped mid-play. Sarah's heart began to pound, a steady thump that echoed in her ears. She turned toward the hallway, her steps quickening. "Kids, where are you?" A faint sound, a soft thump, came from upstairs. Relief flickered in Sarah's mind. They must have gone to their rooms. She climbed the stairs, the old wood creaking under her weight, each step amplifying the silence that seemed to pulse around her. The hallway was dim, the last rays of sunlight filtering through a small window at the far end. Emily's bedroom door was ajar, and Sarah pushed it open, expecting to find her daughter sprawled on the bed with a book or her dolls. The room was empty. The bed was neatly made, the stuffed animals lined up against the pillow, untouched. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She backed out, her eyes darting to Jacob's room across the hall. His door was closed. She reached for the knob, her hand trembling, and turned it slowly. The door creaked open, revealing a room bathed in shadows. Jacob's baseball glove sat on his desk, his backpack slumped against the wall. But he wasn't there. Panic surged through Sarah, a cold wave that tightened her chest. She spun around, her voice rising. "Emily! Jacob! This isn't funny." Her shout echoed through the house, unanswered. The silence pressed closer, suffocating, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. She hurried downstairs, her footsteps loud in the unnatural quiet, and checked the kitchen, the bathroom, the small pantry. Nothing. The children were gone. Sarah's mind raced, grasping for explanations. Had they gone outside to play? She hadn't heard the back door, but it was possible. She rushed to the kitchen window, peering into the backyard. The grass stretched toward a line of trees that marked the edge of their property, their branches swaying faintly in the evening breeze. The swing set stood motionless, its chain still. No sign of the children. She grabbed her phone from the counter, her fingers fumbling as she dialed her neighbor, Tom, who lived a half-mile down the road. The call went to voicemail. "Tom, it's Sarah," she said, her voice shaking. "The kids, they're not in the house. I don't know where they are. Please, if you're home, come over." She hung up and shoved the phone into her pocket, her eyes scanning the room for anything out of place. Then she heard it, a low, guttural sound like a growl coming from outside. It was faint, almost swallowed by the silence, but unmistakable. Sarah froze, her blood turning to ice. The sound came again, deeper this time, vibrating through the walls. It wasn't a dog, not a coyote. It was something else, something unfamiliar, and it was close. She moved to the back door, her hand hovering over the knob. Every instinct screamed at her to stay inside, to lock the door and wait for help. But her children were out there, somewhere, and she couldn't wait. She grabbed a flashlight from a drawer, its beam cutting through the dim kitchen, and opened the door. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of earth and pine. The growl had stopped, but the silence was no less menacing. "Emily! Jacob!" Sarah called, stepping onto the back porch. Her voice sounded small, swallowed by the vastness of the night. The flashlight beam swept across the yard, illuminating the grass, the swing set, the trees. Nothing moved. She descended the steps, her heart hammering, and walked toward the tree line, the beam shaking in her grip. As she neared the trees, the silence grew thicker, as if the world had paused, waiting. She stopped, her breath shallow, and listened. A rustling came from the underbrush, faint but deliberate, like something shifting its weight. "Kids!" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The rustling stopped, and for a moment there was nothing but the pounding of her pulse. Then a shape emerged from the shadows. It was tall, taller than any man, its silhouette hulking against the trees. Sarah's flashlight beam caught it, and she gasped, stumbling back. The creature was massive, at least 7 feet tall, its body covered in dark, matted fur that seemed to absorb the light. Its shoulders were broad, its arms long and muscular, ending in claw-like hands. But it was the face that froze her in place, a canine snout, lips curled back to reveal sharp, glistening teeth, and eyes that glowed a sickly yellow in the flashlight's beam. The creature stared at her, unblinking, its gaze piercing through her. Sarah's legs felt like lead, her body rooted to the spot. The air grew heavy with a musky, rancid odor like wet fur and decay. The creature took a step forward, its movement slow and deliberate, the ground crunching beneath its weight. Sarah's mind screamed at her to run, but her body wouldn't obey. The flashlight slipped from her hand, clattering to the ground, its beam tilting upward to cast the creature's shadow across the trees, a monstrous, distorted shape that seemed to stretch into the night. A scream tore from Sarah's throat, raw and desperate. The sound broke her paralysis, and she turned, sprinting toward the house. Her lungs burned, her legs pumping as she stumbled over the grass. She didn't dare look back, but she felt it. The weight of those yellow eyes, the presence of something ancient and predatory at her heels. She reached the porch, flung open the door, and slammed it shut, fumbling with the lock. Her hand shook so violently she could barely turn the bolt. Inside, she backed away from the door, her eyes fixed on the small window beside it. The creature hadn't followed, but the silence was gone, replaced by a low, rhythmic thumping, like a heartbeat pulsing through the walls. Sarah grabbed a kitchen knife from the counter, its blade trembling in her grip, and pressed herself against the wall, listening. Minutes passed, each one stretching into eternity. The thumping stopped, and the silence returned, heavier than before. Sarah's phone buzzed in her pocket, startling her so badly she nearly dropped the knife. It was Tom calling back. "Sarah, I'm on my way," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "Stay inside. Don't open the door until I get there." She tried to speak, to tell him what she'd seen, but her throat was dry, her words caught in a tangle of fear. "Just hurry," she managed, her voice a whisper. She hung up and slid to the floor, the knife clutched to her chest, her eyes darting between the door and the windows. Then from upstairs came a sound, a soft giggle, unmistakably Emily's. Sarah's heart lurched. She scrambled to her feet, the knife still in hand, and ran to the stairs. "Emily!" she called, her voice cracking. Another giggle, followed by Jacob's voice, low and muffled, as if he were whispering. They were in the house. They'd been here the whole time. Sarah climbed the stairs, her legs weak, her mind reeling. The hallway was dark now, the sunlight gone, replaced by a gray twilight that seemed to seep from the walls. Emily's door was open again, and Sarah stepped inside, the knife raised. There on the bed sat Emily and Jacob, their faces pale but unharmed, their eyes wide as they looked at her. "Mommy, why are you holding a knife?" Emily asked, her voice small. Sarah lowered the blade, tears streaming down her face. "Where were you?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "I looked everywhere. I called for you. We were playing hide and seek," Jacob said, his tone defensive. "We hid in the closet. We heard you yelling, but we thought it was part of the game." Sarah pulled him into her arms, sobbing, her relief mingling with the lingering terror of what she'd seen. She checked the closet, finding it empty, the clothes undisturbed. The children's explanation made no sense. She checked every room, every corner, but they were here, safe, and that was all that mattered. When Tom arrived 10 minutes later, his pickup truck roaring into the driveway, Sarah told him everything. She described the creature, its size, its eyes, the way it had moved. Tom listened, his face grim, and admitted he'd heard stories from hunters in the area. Tales of a Dogman, a creature that stalked the woods, neither man nor beast. He searched the yard with a rifle, but found no tracks, no sign of anything unusual. Sarah and the children stayed with Tom's family that night, the farmhouse too quiet, too empty to feel safe. They returned the next day to pack their things, moving to a small apartment in town. Sarah never saw the creature again, but the memory of those yellow eyes haunted her, a reminder of the night the silence of Broome County came alive,